I know. Hello, everybody. Welcome to here today, Tropical Nomad, episode number 417. Now, today's a very special episode. I know I say it every week, but it's true. It is, right? So what we have today is a beautiful friend, Laksmi DeNeefe Suardana. Yes. Welcome to the show. Round of applause for Laksmi again, please. So now, as many of you know, 2022, Puteri Indonesia, you won. Tonight is incredibly important because one of the things which I really appreciate and admire about you is that not only did you meet the president maybe 6 times and foreign dignitaries of every country that was basically visiting Indonesia, but you take Indonesia with you, right? So Indonesia, as many of you know, is one of the youngest, largest early adopters of technology in the world. Almost 300 million people in its population. And the recent general election, 60% of the electorate is under 30, right? Again, 60% of the voting electorate was under 30. So you've got that. You've got the fact that now we have the vice president coming in is one of the youngest vice presidents in history, right? Ever, right? So what we have is that we have an extraordinary country of 200 languages, 500 cultures, 17,000+ islands, right? So we have an incredible country here.
800 languages.
800 languages. You see, I stand corrected. Thank you for that. Wow, I'm going to update my little database. So 800 languages. So what we have tonight is a really interesting conversation about the future of Indonesia, the direction of Indonesia. And it's a conversation that will meet and it will touch upon many different areas which make up Indonesia today and moving forward into the future. So just before we get started, my name is Robert Ian Bonnick. I'm the founder of SpeakuP Monday, Destination Indonesia weekly talk show. And this is episode number 417. Also the founder of RIB and Associates, which is a growth strategist and gateway to Indonesia for foreign companies and domestic companies to grow within Indonesia. So let's probably get this started. Thank you so much for agreeing. I think we did this about 3 weeks ago when I saw you at an event. We had this great conversation. I'm like, Laksmi, we have to do this. Yeah. And you graciously said yes.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And, I'm from Bali, so I'm very proud to participate in promoting Bali also in events here because I feel like for the past 2 years, I haven't been in Bali so much. I was based in Jakarta, but I did a lot of work for Indonesia. And now I kind of feel like, I want to be back in Bali more, do things for the community and for the island. So that's why I'm like, yes, of course, I would love to do this. And also I came here with my mom when you interviewed her, right?
So for those of you who don't know, Laksmi's mom, Janet DeNeefe, now Australian, and your father's Balinese, right? So yes. Thank you. So
thank you.
Thank you. Her mom. Oh, thank you. Her mom is what I call an incredible force of nature. So she is a founder of many things, but 3 which I'll draw attention to. So one being the Ubud Food Festival, another one being the Ubud Readers and Writers Festival as well, and of course Casalinga and a bunch Casaluna and a bunch of there's more restaurants
and
as well, and you of course. So she's an absolute, Australian from Melbourne, but again, what I see in her, I see in you, right? This stoicism, this part of you which doesn't get phased so much. There's part of you that's down to earth. There's part of you that's also disciplined and does the work, right? You're not a person who kind of received these things and just ran with them. You're a person who also worked very hard for it. And your mom, like she's watching. Hello, Janet. We'll see you again soon. Is wonderful. So, look, I think a good way to start is that while we were promoting this event and just seeing the responses on all of the different social media channels, let's go Indonesia first. So what I noticed and recognized was that there's so much love there for you, that people refer to you as my Puteri, as my Miss Indonesia, Puteri Indonesia. So there's this great love, and this is years later. I think as well, part of this is that this inspiring journey of a young woman who didn't think that she could win, ends up winning, and then what happens after that. So maybe the first question is, if you can take us back and kind of give us an insight into, where you were before winning. What kind of life did you have? How were you thinking about life? And then we'll get on to how it changed your life.
Well, actually, I grew up in Ubud. My mom's from Australia. My father is Balinese. And yeah, I think I pretty much had a pretty normal childhood, except the fact that I was different. So I went to a local school. Most of my friends are 100% Balinese, and I was mixed. So it was kind of I guess my first experience, like trying to find where I fit in or like my true identity. But besides that, everything was normal. And I'm really, really grateful to have parents who are very creative. Like my mom is not just creative, but she's also very business minded. So I learned a lot from her. And she kind of, even though she's Australian, she is really Indonesian at heart. So she has an Eastern mentality. And I think with what you said, we don't really tend to talk a lot. So it's kind of funny how I ended up in pageantry and being in front of so many people, always talking all the time, because we're pretty quiet. I didn't grow up, talking a lot in public, because my parents were like not big talkers, but they've always worked hard, and I've always been with my parents and going to meetings with them, and I saw what they did and I kind of learned from that. So yeah, I've been learning about this from a very young age. And then I moved to Melbourne when I was 16 for college. 4 years later, I moved to Italy to study fashion business in Florence. That was a whole different experience, another story. And then, so I basically grew up in Bali, went to school abroad. I guess a lot of mixed kids do the same thing as me, so I never thought I was special in any way. But I knew that I grew up in such a special place with such valuable education from my parents and the privilege that not many children from my SD, from my school had. I always knew that I had something more, and I've always had this mission in my heart that I wanted my friends, at first I wanted my friends to have what I had. But then again, when I studied abroad, I came back to Bali, I started volunteering. I wanted to help children that were not so fortunate. So yeah, I went to university in Italy, and then COVID happened. I came back to Bali. During that time, I never thought about even joining a pageantry. When I told my sister, she was like, "What? You don't even speak Indonesian very well, and you want to join Puteri Indonesia?" And then I also told my friend, I'm very sporty. I just don't see myself fitting in. I would have to work really, really hard to fit that image of a Puteri Indonesia. But then because they really believed in me more than myself, they saw something special. And it hit me when my friend told me that, Bali has never won. And then we've never had a representative from Ubud. And during that time, during COVID, it was so quiet. You just wanted to give back. I wanted to do something for Bali. And I feel like this was my opportunity and the responsibility given to me. So I had to take it. And I decided to just, be courageous and do something different and something out of the box, something that would make Bali proud, of course, but something that could add value to my life, something I could grow from.
That thing about courage, because again, in the back of my head is, all of those women that are looking at this now, younger, old, and we've got the youngest audience here at SpeakuP Monday. Thank you, Detlev and the family. Beautiful seeing these young, beautiful young women. I have two girls, which are 7 and 9, about to become 8 and 10, Indonesian wife and so on. But here's the thing, courage. So I think people here, they think about that, right? Something that I'd love to do but don't feel confident to do it. Something that I want to do but don't think that I can. So just on that point of courage, if there's something that you could pass on to maybe, the next Puteri Indonesia coming from somewhere on these 17,000 plus islands here in Indonesia, what words come up that you could impart and share with them?
What came to my mind first, I guess because I'm Balinese, is the word taksu. If you don't know, taksu means energy in Bali, right? My source of courage was literally my purpose and the energy I got from that. So I really believe I won Puteri Indonesia because I was only there for Bali. I wanted to do my best. I wanted to win for my people. And that's how I got the courage, because I never had the experience of modeling, never been on stage. So I'm telling you, I was really, I guess, not sure what I was doing. I tried my best. I worked really, really hard. But, it was a bit scary because I was doing everything on my first try. But I got that courage, that energy, because I really believe that I was there for the right reason. And I was there. It was like a calling for me. So that's where I got my courage from. Sometimes it's not, always like something that you need to dig down from inside of you. Sometimes you need to get that energy from outside, or once you find what it is that drives you, you'll be courageous. Yeah.
Love it. All right. Thank you for answering that. So immediately before, you're at the pageant, you've got the finalists there, and you're thinking, am I going to win? Am I not going to win? Do I care about winning? Yes, no. What was kind of going through your mind? And then what happened when you heard your name being called?
You mean during the grand final night? I never thought about, am I going to win or not? I was like, I'm going to win tonight. Yeah, it was like, I don't know. I was like, am I going to win tonight or not? No, I never thought about that. I just went through the whole night just thinking about what I have to do, where I have to stand, to be calm when I answer the questions, which was really hard because, mind you, the pageant lasted for almost a month and we didn't sleep at all. It was probably the hardest thing I had to do in my life, You think that joining a pageant is so easy, it's glamorous. It's really not. Yeah. At one point in the competition, I was questioning myself, what am I doing here? But then again, I just kept going and I really believed in myself. I knew, I just had this feeling that I was going to win. But when I was telling you last time, when I actually won, I was actually surprised that I won, because I think that feeling that I was going to win came from the energy, that courage. No matter what was going to be the result, I felt like a winner being there already. But the fact that I won and I had to keep going on this journey, represent Indonesia on a much bigger scale, much bigger stage and platform, was something that I didn't think about yet at that time on stage.
What happened? So here's.
But I knew I was ready.
Yeah,
I had this responsibility
So the things, if I can tease it out, that I'm hearing is that, in no particular order, but you were in the process. So you weren't even thinking about the end result. You were like, where do I need to stand? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
I need to be calm. These are success tips I'm hearing.
I was in the flow. I really was in the flow. I've been talking to some athletes, and then sometimes they say that when they're playing a match, they don't remember much about the match because they're in that state of flow. And it happened to me on that final night. I was just in the state of flow. It felt like a dream. And then suddenly you're just called and you're the winner. Wow. Yeah. But I did have this life coach. And she told me to visualize what happened on that night every day. So I felt like I was reliving my visualization that night.
Wow. One of the things which I love about this environment is that, because we haven't spoken about this before.
No.
So I'm learning like you for the first time, right? I didn't know that. Okay, I'm a coach, believer in visualization, all of it, right? But I didn't know that about you, right? Which again is for those of you maybe watching, maybe the ear is, what are the breadcrumbs here? So what is the root? What things, principles was she doing that allowed her to have this kind of success? That's what I'm kind of naturally listening to. All right, so let's move forward. So here's the thing. You just said, right, that I didn't realize at that time, you felt that you were called. You felt a certain readiness. You speak about being in the flow. You're in the process, right? And then you kind of realize, later, this is a big responsibility now, right? So then how did you adjust, right, to that responsibility? And if there's a way of you kind of relaying back an important part of that people can really get an insight into that responsibility?
Well, I also want to add that the grand final night is not where you put in the work. That's where you show, you display. So actually you don't need to think during that night. It's already done. You already should know that you either win or lose. So it's so important to, work really hard and put more effort in the process. And the grand final is just the icing on the cake. Nothing's going to change the judge's decision on that night. They're going to see you, but there's also the judging before that. So, it's so important to be in this flow state. But then, what prepared me for the responsibility? Yeah,
so you spoke earlier on about, that you didn't realize at that time the responsibility that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
So then the question is, here's the question, saying, all right, so what was that feeling? And again, for some reason, I'm being called to say this, it's this kind of conversation we're having right now, in a way, is kind of leaving breadcrumbs for other people to follow. That's just what's coming in. So that's when I said to you, so what's the responsibility? And in that responsibility, what is it that you can pass on to somebody else who might be taking that same journey? What advice? What insight?
For me, it's so strange to talk about the final night because, again, I'm sometimes trying to remember things that I don't remember because, as I was telling you, it felt like a dream, like just a flow. But when I won, that responsibility just, it's so hard to describe. But you're standing on that stage, and actually, when I was crowned, when I took my first walk, it was the first time that I actually saw all the thousands of the audience that was watching that night. And then you start to think that, oh my God, there's millions of people watching on TV. The next day, I saw my followers grew from 1,000 something to 200,000 million followers, right? And then you're just like, wow, you're actually someone now that's representing the whole country, representing young people, and of course, most importantly, girls in Indonesia. So I really want to show everyone who's following me that I'm in this for real. I'm serious about this. I'm not just here to be beautiful and to be on stage, but I want to show everyone that my advocacy is really real. I actually want to make changes for Indonesia and for especially the girls and the women that I'm working for, and also just represent the whole country the best way I can. Not just, to go to Miss Universe and look beautiful and compete, but I just wanted to take on the whole journey of my Puteri Indonesia and use it as best as I could. Work all day, every day for a year, like crazy. I've never worked that much before in my life. So just that sense of responsibility was so important to me because I'm so proud to be Indonesian. I'm so proud to be a young Indonesian that got all the experiences that I had.
What I love about, again, what I'm hearing in your story is this understanding that life has an interesting way of preparing you for something coming, right? So, again, and then we can move on after this, knowing your mum. I haven't met your dad, I don't know your father properly, but your mum I know a bit, right, after we sat down and interviewed for a decent time. So, all of these things inherent within her, passed on to you, that you may or may not take for granted, that I don't think you do, comes in handy, like this work ethic, this ability just to cut through whatever there is to what's important, right?
But also I'm Balinese, right? We have a big sense of community, big sense of responsibility for the community. So since I was young, you know, I was always taught that it's so important to show up to the Banjar for the people, because you cannot live alone in this world. So I feel like when I won, that sense of responsibility also came to me, but on a larger scale. It's not just my community in Ubud anymore. It's like the whole country. So I had to show up.
And then, so that's what you just said before about, you know, you're a stand for women, young ladies all the way through, and there's certain things that you'd like to change or certain things that you'd like to bring into the consciousness, right? Let's talk about those things. So if I asked you, okay, you know, you have this great stage, you have a following, you have an importance, you have a sense of righteousness, right? A sense of, this is what I know I need to do, and I'm ready for it, I'm going to stand up for it, I'm going to do it. So then if I asked you, so in which areas or in which ways would you like to empower, if that's the right word, or to pass on, you know, to women in Indonesia, what would you say?
I think no matter your background or where you come from, it's so important to take chances, and whatever opportunity is in front of you, to go for it. Because I know that it sounds so like, oh yeah, okay. But so many women in Indonesia are still don't have that courage. You know, they're still like, oh, are you sure I can? If you go to the little towns in Indonesia, they are still very traditional, closed by the opportunities in front of them. So it's just like a simple message, but I feel like an Indonesian woman like me who's in the public figure and has a voice and a platform really needs to deliver this message. Because, you know, like, for example, Indonesia, the participation in politics is still so low. And it's kind of complicated, and we don't understand why, because there are so many people here, there's so many girls, but there's still that, you know, mentality here that women should, you know, get married, have babies, stay at home, And
then how? So you mentioned about being a stand for women, and about talking about this, bringing this to light, right? The consciousness. But if there's, you know, maybe with the connections that you have, you know, you've sat with the president, you've met the president many times, the ministers, so you have a good understanding on how governance works in Indonesia. You know, you've been living in Jakarta, you know, for the past couple of years, which admittedly is where the power is when it comes to Indonesia. It's still the capital, right, before it moves. So then, you know, if someone was watching now, let's say he's a genie with a magic, not in a magic one, in a lamp, right? Rub the lamp, you get 3 wishes. We can just take one. So what wish and to who would you give that wish to start this process of change?
Well, what wish would I give a genie?
Yeah, so like it's like Laksmi has this, you know, understanding of what she is, what she stands for in this conversation about empowering women. So who is it that you need to talk to, and what is it that you need to say to them? And that's where the genie and the magic lamp comes in.
You know, I think the most important things happen in the grassroots. So I think the leaders in the community should be really pro in pushing women forward. For example, in the Banjar, you know, there's always like ketua, the head of this and that. And most of the time, still now, it's the men. Because the women are too shy or don't have the courage to you know, raise their hands. So I really want someone who, the leader, who are most likely male, to really give the opportunity and chance and push for the girls so that they're brave enough to do something little, first in their community and then eventually outside of that.
Got it. So that grassroots approach, as you mentioned, by empowering at the Banjar level,
Yeah.
you know, right? So let's empower women.
Yeah.
You know, so guys, look around and see, you know, who is there. I mean, one thing about Singapore, right? This meritocracy of the best person for the job, right? As opposed to you're my family member, you're my best friend, you're my girlfriend's sister's husband, right? It's like you're really good at what you do, and I recognize your talent and ability. Therefore, you should be the one there's your opportunity.
Yeah.
Right?
Start slowly and open the doors for women. Like, for me, Nilo Jelantik, for example, is such an incredible role model for Balinese women because she's brave enough to do what she's doing. And I feel like what she's doing right now is already opening so many doors to Indonesian women.
Got it. Thank you. So let's go for a bit of a wander around Indonesia. So we've spoken about empowering women. Very important topic. Glad that we covered it right first. Okay. So now we've got some other areas here. So we have education. We have entrepreneurship. Okay. We have human rights. We have the environment. Okay. So maybe let's go for a bit of a walk. Which things would you like to see in which area? And how do you think we can get the change or the chain reaction for that change to happen you can choose one of those areas, one of those sectors.
Which area I think is the most important for change in Indonesia? I mean, I advocate for literacy, so I think education is still the most important thing. It's, the solution to every problem that we have. It's like, it starts from a young age. It's still very important. And, so many children in Indonesia still don't have basic quality education. Quality education where it allows them to think critically for themselves. Because, for example, a couple of years ago, I was volunteering for Begawan Foundation. And I was teaching SMP kids, so they're grade 7, 8, 9. And when I asked the children, the kids in the classroom, what's your dream? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Something very simple. Most of them say that they want to work in hospitality. So I feel like they don't have that, critical thinking and open imagination to reach more than that. So I think for change to happen, really, we still need to work on our education.
I read today, and again, we didn't discuss this, right? But it's interesting how things come up. So it was in one of the groups. So it goes something like this. So Indonesia has the 4th largest education system in the world. Being the 4th most populous nation, I guess it doesn't come as, that kind of makes sense. But on the scale of quality education, in the top 50, Indonesia's lagging quite far behind. Right, so what you're saying has some substance. Now, what there also is, for those of you watching, because this is Destination Indonesia, Speak Up Monday Destination Indonesia. So what you also have is one of the brightest entrepreneurs in Nadim, right? Yeah. Gojek founder, co-founder with Mikey, who we've had on the show. He's a great guy. And Unicorn Decacorn, who then took the opportunity and I believe cares enough to bring his brain power to lead education, to become the education minister, right? Now, what I also read was that some of these changes, which he feels is necessary, it's a bit of a long-term road. So we're not talking 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, we're talking 5, 10 plus. So, what would you like to see there, being that now, Prabowo's coming in, Gibran is coming in as a vice president. So what would you like to see them do outside of retaining Nadim as the education minister?
I think it's very expensive, to go to school nowadays. So I think we still need to subsidize children and make everything more accessible. Yeah, that's what I would like to see. But also I want to talk about literacy and reading, because I know that Pak Nadim is such a big reader. Even though Indonesia is 98% literate, only 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10, yes, not so many people actually read regularly. Yeah. And it's something that for me is so important, because when I was young, I read a lot of books. My mom read to me a lot, and that really opened up my imagination, and it's the window to the world. So I feel like in Indonesia's education system, and what I would like to see is to have actually Indonesian literature in the curriculum, or even English literature in the curriculum. Just, those kind of things that I think would add to the quality of the education in Indonesia.
Just for a minute here, just a quick digression. So you were in a position to meet and to travel overseas. And I remember talking to your mum about this once, and you know, you got.
Seem like you're very close to my mom.
I know.
You guys talk about me a lot.
Well, you know, things come up. Your daughter wins Puteri Indonesia. You talk a little bit more. So here's the thing, right? So when you're overseas, so there was a certain. I think you got to understand maybe how the world views Indonesia. Okay, and so is there any kind of stories or anything you'd like to share about either the shock or the non-shock? I knew this already, in the way that the world sees Indonesia, and what was your response to that? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, most of the time, like living in Italy, even in Australia, if they ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from Indonesia. Not so many people are amazed, or maybe some of them don't even know where's Indonesia. But if I say I'm from Bali, they're like, yeah, oh my God, so beautiful. I want to go to Bali and everything. So we've had a lot of discussions abroad about Indonesia being a very invisible country for the West, because we're the fourth biggest population, the biggest Muslim country. We're so rich in culture and diversity, but so little know about that. So little know about us. And also, Indonesians probably tend to not overshare so much about our richness. You know, we're very humble. We keep things to ourselves. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of opportunities to be able to tell stories about Indonesia abroad, but not also just for people outside of Indonesia, but I feel like it's also important to keep talking about it within Indonesia, just so that we can preserve and keep that culture, because it's amazing, you know, all the mythologies or all the different food, different traditional dances, fashion, textile, everything. It's so rich. We're so rich.
You know, there's three things that come up. One, we had a beautiful woman, Indonesian, named Lucien Anha. So she is, Lucien is the CEO of Canggu Hotels and Resorts. And her father is one of the largest collectors of Indonesian art.
Oh, wow.
Right, in Indonesia. Incredible story. But what they've done with their resorts in different areas of Indonesia is that they've gone deep into the culture. So they've not only matched it with art, but they've matched it with food. So in each of those areas, as you mentioned before, so many cultures, so many beautiful influences, right? Flavors and so on. So in some of those areas, for example, where the Japanese were, for example, they've delved into that area and they've brought back some of those dishes from those times that basically reflect what was happening there. And these are the things that they're doing in their 3 or 4 resorts around Indonesia, for example. Another one that you've touched upon is that, which really impressed me, yeah? I mean, so unity and diversity is a motto of Indonesia. I'm from the UK, proud to be English, don't really want to live there, but proud to be English. So when I look at the mottos of the countries, right, England is God Save the Queen, now it's obviously God Save the King, depending who you speak to, might be God Save all of us, right, it depends. America, home of the brave, land of the free, maybe I got the one the wrong way around. And Indonesia, unity and diversity. So now here's the thing, if you didn't know the country, but you said, or you asked the question, right, which motto that underpins the DNA of the nation, which motto of these 3 has an opportunity going forward into the future to suit the kind of life that we kind of need to start living? I would choose unity and diversity.
Yeah, Indonesia, of course.
every time, right? And I share this with people a lot, right?
No, so it's a very profound motto, and it was based from Sanskrit. I don't know if you know that. Yeah.
You know, so when I look at that, there was a lady sitting in this chair where you are now, named Rikal Ardani. It was about a year and a half ago, Indonesian, about 23 years of age, something around that time. Because remember, this is 417 episode. It's both Indonesian and foreigner, right? We have both. So she said to me this, and it hit me hard, right? She said, Rob, when the rich scream, wealth whispers. Now that already hit me, and I didn't know why, but it hit me. And they said, Rob, Indonesia is a wealthy country.
Yeah.
Now, it took me about a week to get something like a download on what this meant for me anyway, and I believe meant for her. But what I began to see was this sense of nationalism teetering from the young. She's 23, right? But I saw it in other interviews with different government officials. We've had lots of different people on the show. But what I began to see then, about 2 years ago, was this nationalism coming through that is inclusive, not exclusive. Meaning that I'm a foreigner, my wife's Indonesian, my kids are Indonesian/Australian, but, not even but, and if I come here with an understanding of, hey, you know, wherever I'm going, I need to fit in there, right? It's not me coming with my ideas, my ideologies, my things saying, right, I'm going to bring my ideas and my ideologies and make that there, right, in someone else's nation. No, it's the other way around, right? Then I remember seeing recently, you know, when it came to nickel, right, where I call it the Africa model, where, you know, back in the days, colonization would go to Africa, say, hey, you have all these raw materials, right, we're going to come and take those raw materials, but we're going to pay you though. You're going to do really well out of it. The rest of the nation, not really, but that doesn't matter. We're going to pay you. Is that okay? Yes, it's fine. So now the raw materials come out of the country. They add value out of the country, so that country which has the raw materials gets not much. So now what I've noticed again, you know, Indonesia being, you know, the Switzerland of Asia, right? This incredible neutral nation dealing with Russia, America, right? So within the context of all of this is where I'm going now. Then Jokowi came pretty recently and said, okay, so if you want nickel, that's fine, but you're going to bring your infrastructure into Indonesia, you're going to add value in Indonesia, then you can take it out. So what I see, this invisible country, right, not my words, becoming more visible, but still with a sense of, as you mentioned, there's not an ego. When I look at Jokowi, who I think is the best leader there's been in the last 10 years, you know, I don't see ego. You know, what I see is a man who's about the work. A bit like Obama, right? He's about the work, you know, and that fills me with hope, right? And then again, having these conversations with you in the past as we've had, right? You're 30 years of age, you've got Indonesia on your shoulders. Sorry, under 30, thank you. Indonesia on your shoulders, but you're very aware and cognizant of the fact that you have a role to play, right? So, in the context of that, meaning Indonesia realizing that it's a giant, it's a sleeping giant, it's a superpower, actually. What would you like to see in that regard, kind of in this topic of future of Indonesia? How would you like to see that kind of move towards the rest of the world in this invisibility of Indonesia perspective?
I think we have a lot of problems. Instead of like worrying about how we want to impact the rest of the world, we first need to improve ourselves. I think westernization was never really a threat for Indonesia because we're so proud of our culture. And at the end of the day, I feel like as a young Indonesian myself, even if we go abroad, we always come back and we always like, we're so proud of our own cultures and of our own ways already. The threat is not westernization for me personally so much because, yeah, we still have so much culture, tradition that we actually need to preserve, you know, even though if it's not a threat, there's still a chance that it would be forgotten. But it's, in a way, capitalism for me is more of a threat. Greed, you know, it's what I, even in Bali, sometimes see, and what makes me sad that, you know, we all need to survive, yes, but sometimes we sacrifice ourselves, what we have, our culture, because we want to survive and because we want to, I don't know, compete or do well, better than others. So I would like to see more of a deeper understanding of what's important for our country instead of just growing economically. Yeah, because we have still so many problems instead of like pushing Indonesia to the world. We have environmental problems, we have, you know, educational problems, so many things.
So now for the people here in the audience, you're going to have a chance to ask a question in the next 5 minutes or so. So we're going to bring you in, right? A few things I want to quickly comment on. So one, because again...
Sorry, and also
yes,
people are coming to Indonesia, not the other way around, right?
I'm one of those. So here's it. So there was a man, beautiful guy, Puteri Subangkat. I think that's how you pronounce his surname. Now, Puteri, he basically reinforces a really interesting statistic that I didn't know about until we sat down like we're sitting down now. So it's like this. So you have like a brains leak in lots of countries. In other words, the youngest and brightest get poached by a different country, and they get pulled out of that country, usually monetarily speaking, and then your brains kind of leave the country. So Indonesia has one of the largest rates of return of Indonesians going out, learning something somewhere else, and then bringing it back to Indonesia. So Puteri is one of those people. His company is called Desktop IP. Now, Desktop IP, check it out, everybody. Really important company because in the space of technology, there's a few companies like Microsoft, the guys, the guys in Alibaba, and there's one other one who own their own tech. Puteri, with Desktop IP, has created a product that he owns his own tech. So in other words, part of the data leaks that have been going on in Indonesia the last few years, because the servers are in the US, right? So this time he has an opportunity to bring the servers to Indonesia, an Indonesian company set up here. Now, where he learnt was in the US. So that one kind of took me by surprise, actually. But he's one of them. Really good guy. Check him out. Desktop IP. Puteri, right? He's the founder of it. So just before we go to questions, what else would you like to comment on? You mentioned about some of the challenges, right, that Indonesia faces. You mentioned environment. You mentioned a few others. We've spoken about education. But is there any others before we move to the audience, that you would like to comment on from a different perspective or your own perspective that you'd like to see kind of be moving in a different direction?
The traffic.
I knew you were going to say it.
I mean, we still need to talk more about this.
I feel hurt.
Come on, we live in Bali. We need to start talking more about it. And I don't hear about it so much in Jakarta. Even in Jakarta, they have also problems with traffic. But this is not okay. It's something that should not be normalized.
And look, so just again, lots of people we've interviewed. So now there's an airport which is scheduled to be built in the east of Bali. Then you have the toll road from Mengwi to Gilimanuk. Then you also have the MRT underground that's scheduled to be starting soon, going from the airport, I think initially to Seminyak, and then there's different places kind of dotted around. But yeah, so from your experience, a tough question in a way, how can you see this moving forward? What needs to be done, do you think, to see these things moving forward maybe at a faster rate? Because I think everybody here understands that.
No, this is something that people tell me a lot, or people complain to me a lot. I don't know why. But we need better people running for the government here. Simple as that.
Okay.
I don't know if you know how was the election process, but it was more than just choosing the president and vice president and legislative. Because you have to choose from the central, from the top, and also everyone to the bottom to Bali. And there was a lot of representatives, and I guarantee you most people don't know who they are. So we need better people to run for governor.
So everybody here, we're going to have a third, thank you for that. We have a third microphone. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. The mic will come to you, Sister B. And with these mics here, just point them at your mouth as opposed to down here. Can't hear you. So just point them at your mouth. So just before we get to your question, Bhavna, so you live in Ubud. You're born in Ubud. So Ubud seems to have done well in this regard, right? When it comes, I know you get some big traffic delays there sometimes, but the infrastructure seems to be pretty good.
I disagree.
Okay, good. Disagreement, yes. So let's talk about your own backyard. Right? So you probably know the people in Ubud, right? They know you and your family. You've contributed a lot to Ubud. So then let's start there. So what would you like to see in Ubud? And do you see it changing anytime soon? And how can you or we, people watching this or people in the audience, help to shift that?
Yeah, so I just there's not much infrastructure to accommodate everyone who wants to live and who comes to Ubud to visit. You know, I grew up in Ubud. I know my street. It's completely different now. But not because the streets are wider or there's more facilities for the local people living there. No, it's because there's just more businesses, more restaurants, more cafes, less space to walk, not even place to like play around. Because I used to play in the rice fields as a kid. And now there's none of that. But there's the roads hasn't changed. We still don't have traffic lights in Ubud. So, you know, the basic things that were supposed to be provided for us so that we can perform better and live our day-to-day lives more efficiently are still missing, in my opinion. There have been changes, but for me, it's not significant enough.
Who would you like to speak to, or who have you tried to speak to? You know, who can? Is it the Bupati, for example, that's responsible on that level, or is it someone
You
else?
know what? Actually, what's so interesting is that my mom organized Ubud Writers and Readers Festival, organized a public discussion. I don't think it's about talking to one person who's in charge. I think it's about gathering all the locals, all the people, and like making them have a conversation about this and have everyone say what they want. Because the government works for us. They're public servants. They're supposed to accommodate our needs. So I think everyone should come together and continue having public discussions.
Straw poll, the people that are here, just with the raise of hands. All right, she doesn't know this is coming. I'm smiling. She's like, what are you going to ask me? All right.
You're like, we're just having a chit chat today, and all the questions are so heavy and deep.
I know, but that's good. It's good. So here's the question: who believes that this wonderful woman to my left should run for politics? Raise your hand. That's 90%.
Everyone tells me you should run. You should run. Nyalag, you know, nyalag.
90% of the audience, right? No one was set up, right? This is just a straight thing, you know. So
Someone told me that too, and someone said you should run. You should run and ban all digital printing because that would make Bali more beautiful, like in one night. And I was like, if you want me to run, you have to help me. We can't do everything ourselves, you know.
Are you gonna run?
Only if you help me. Only if everyone helped me, right?
I am.
That's how it works.
On camera, I am super more.
Because I feel like a lot of people just like nowadays like to put responsibility on someone else who they think can make change. Yeah. But no, change starts from you also doing the work.
I love that. I love that. Oh, I got goosebumps, man. Oh.
Gabisa, you can't tell me to make the change. I can't do it myself.
I love that. What a pleasure. Okay, we go to questions, right? Spicy. We go to questions. So Bhavna, who is a wonderful co-host here at Speak Up Monday, over to you for a question. Yeah.
Sure. So kind of springboarding off the question that Brother Rob had, I feel like you have such a unique perspective because you have this expat view, being of mixed upbringing, having been also educated abroad, but very clearly very passionate about like your roots. So I guess my question to you would be, and you talk a lot about grassroots and kind of doing the work. So as an expat who loves the island, loves the country, in your opinion, what can we do as a female, as you said, to empower other females and children at a grassroots level that you think that we as expats can contribute and do the work, as you said? If there's like 2 or 3 things that you think you want to impart, that we could say, yes, we're going to run with that and do it, what would that be?
Yeah, I think just educate yourselves about the culture and integrate yourself because, you know, in Bali, people are a little bit shy, right? So you have to also go there. You have to be the one asking the questions and be patient because I know it's not easy. Even for me as a Balinese, if I spoke to my father or his friends in the past, now they listen to me because I won Puteri Indonesia. But in the past, they're like, what are you talking about? You know, you should just go to the kitchen. But be patient and just, continue to try and help because at the end of the day, you're not only doing this for yourself to live here, but also for their own good as well. So I think, yeah, there has to be a mutual understanding there. Because we also, Balinese, benefit from all the foreigners, right? So we have to understand that we have to live side by side, we have to work side by side. So everyone has to just work together, be inclusive.
You know, thank you, Bhavna, great question. Of course, right? She's amazing. Here's the thing. So when I first met you a couple of years ago or more, when Janet was being interviewed down there in Tropical Nomad, thank you again, Tropical Nomad, technical partner of 2 or 3 years now. So this was before you became who you are now. But even then I saw something in you. I'm not saying that I have an all-seeing eye, because I don't, right? But I just felt something in you. And you know, the reason why tonight, because remember, we don't script anything, it just comes the way it comes, right? And I feel the reason why is because, you know, I see you, and I'm not alone, as being a leader, right? And so we spoke earlier on about, you know, you would love to see, you know, women empowered at the banja level. So the grassroots up, not the top down necessarily, but the bottom up. So, and we spoke off camera earlier on about, you know, the importance of, you know, realizing that the universe is a reflection of us. So who you are internally, the outside world in a way becomes or mirrors. So in other words, if you're able to make peace, acceptance with yourself, then that around you becomes the same, right? And it's deep, and I've got a few more goosebumps, but it's really important, right? And you have this ability to do that. You also, again, I won't talk about Janet too much. I've mentioned her about 20 times. I'm not even going to apologize. Good, right? But here's the thing. So you have the upbringing that you have. You have like these attributes that you have. You have this, and we saw it, you know, earlier on, and everyone saw it, right? The tiger come out, right? But you need all these things. Not really a tiger, but you know what I'm saying. But you need these things, right? You need to be adept. You need to be fluid. You need to have an opinion, I feel. You need to be able to stand up for yourself, I feel. And so you have these aspects, which to me, and I think most people here, would lend itself perfectly to become the change that you want to see in the world. I also agree that it's not one person by themselves. So one thing which I haven't shared with many people, but I'll do it now. So I grew up in children's homes in London from 6 months to 18, had a crazy life, right? Worked with celebrities, all the rest of that. But I found out 10 years ago that in my family tree are people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. They're all Jamaican Maroons, right? Big history. So for years I've been pushing this away, this door. But I realized that I have to also be the change that I want to see too. If I sit back and push myself back and make excuses for not being the person that I know I was kind of born to be, then shame on me. By the way, I'm not putting any shame on you. But I see that potential in you, as does everyone else who's here. And that's the reason maybe why this interview is a little bit more stronger and less chit-chatty than maybe what I thought it was going to be, right? Because you can do it. I support you, everyone here supports you. And I think this way of speaking is a way for you to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just want to add also, because sometimes I also ask the question to myself, how can I be more involved in creating change in just Ubud, for example? Like, who do I talk to? Where do I start? We don't know because, you know, we don't have a manual for these things, and we're also just learning in this life. But I think it's really important to talk to the right people. So once you find someone who is key to actually having you be involved or creating change, it's gonna be so easy.
You know, there's 2 women that come into my mind, Indonesian. One is Melati Wason, who was going to come tonight, but she's somewhere else in the world. She was in Berlin, came back, and then she's going to fly out again. So Melati Wason is, her and her sister Yasmin did the Bye Bye Plastic Bags, as you remember. But she's created Youthtopia, which is a movement which is empowering other young people to become change makers like her. And she obviously is on a different level now, you know, speaking with Obama and all of these things, right? Amazing woman. Elvira, her mum, another mum. Elvira, you're awesome. I can't help it, I'm sorry. But you're awesome. And Malati, you're awesome as well. And Yasmin, so are you. Now, there's one other woman. Her name is Matilda Dwi Lestari. Now, Matilda Dwi Lestari is the first Indonesian women's team, female team, to complete the 7 Summits Challenge. What does that mean? It means that you climb the highest mountain on 7 continents, including Mount Everest. So she's a mountaineer. Now, Matilda is a reason why this show is all Q&A. Before, early on in the episodes, up to episode 50, it was all about a bit of a presentation followed by a Q&A. Right? Then she was the one who said, we got to it, that she realized that she didn't want to speak in front of people, like in a way of presenting. It's a bit salesy. Yeah. So I said, you know what, we'll do all Q&A. And she was like, damn it, okay, fine, I'll do it. And that interview, another serious woman of substance and power that just lives her way. And I love it. So there are some, you said before, unity and diversity. In Indonesia, Indonesian women and expat women and men, that's what I mean. That's why I love Indonesia, right? Because it's unity in diversity, or united in diversity. So the fact that you said before, I don't want to do it by myself. I want to have other people come and support me. I think is the perfect way to do it. Right? And the thing that makes me smile is that I can think of just names that drop into my head that have expertise in different areas, which, if can be harnessed and coming together, can create change, the likes of which that we've been talking about tonight. So again, that's why I'm kind of happy and content. It's not over yet, that we had this chance to kind of talk. Okay. Other questions, anyone? Just raise your hand. Yeah, over there. Yeah, so we'll get the mic over to you. Thank you. So by the way, just while we're moving the mic, next week on the show, it's all about charities. So it's all about like a charity blueprint for Bali. And so we have Margaret Barry from Bali Children's Foundation.
I used to work with her.
Yeah, she's amazing. We have Janur, right? Janur Yasa, who was CNN Heroes for Plastic Exchange. And we also have Bim Bim, who is from Bali Bersama Bisa, which is all about mental health, which is really powerful. So we're going to be talking about kind of like the insider's view about what charities are, because I think a lot of people have this crazy idea that they're easy, has this crazy idea that you can just do it, right? And a lot of people come with this mindset of, duplication or collaboration. They choose duplication. So instead of saying, hey, let's see in that particular area for the challenge that I see, is anyone else doing anything about it, and can I help or support them? Instead of doing that, a lot of expats, sorry to call you out, kind of say, I can do it. Here's my white horse, I can ride it and I can do it myself, but you're duplicating something that's already been done and it doesn't work. Yeah. So that's next week, guys. It's going to be a really great show. Make sure you come. Okay, question.
It's not just in charities.
No, it's not just in charities. Absolutely right. So, my dear, Jonathan. Okay, yeah. Okay. So, question.
Yeah, the question is basically, I don't know how to actually make it into a question, but I had some experience with the beauty pageant in Colombia. And in Colombia, beauty is like a business, really. These plastic surgeons are like working on the pageant girls, and they're allowed to have their body changed, and they're brought up when they're very young. The parents push them into being what they call misses, and they actually have courses that people take and things like that. It's a major thing. Since you've been to Miss Universe, right? You've been to the pageant. And so you've met all these. I mean, what is it like? How do you feel about that? How the beauty pageants are in different parts of the world?
Thank you. Very interesting question. I think it's very different for every country. It was really interesting for me to meet, maybe it was 86 girls from all over the world. Yes, there's a really big beauty pageant culture in Colombia and South America, and it's grown into Asia as well, like Thailand, Philippines. They have such a big beauty pageant fan base and following, and it's integrated into the pride of their nation now. Yeah. Literally every country is so different. you know, when it's really big in your country and you do all these kind of different procedures to enhance your beauty, to make you look like the perfect woman in order to win, it means that you're coming from a serious beauty pageant country. But for some little countries, like I think it was the first time Bhutan joined Miss Universe during my year, it's already such a big pride for them just to represent their country. So, you know, there's so many pros and cons about beauty pageants. It also depends on the angle you want to see it. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good opportunity for women to learn about life, learn about being a woman, learn about courage, standing on a stage representing your country, which is not a privilege that everyone gets to have every day. So yeah, it really depends on how you want to see it.
Thank you for the question. So I think we have a question
And-
next to you as well. I know you want to continue. Yeah.
Well, if I can add also a little bit about plastic surgery, you know, it was offered to me as well, all these different procedures, and every girl can decide for themselves, at least here in Indonesia. I chose not to do it just because I have my values and I want to stand up for them, whether I'm in a beauty pageant or not. And I didn't want to change myself because I wanted to represent girls that look like me. And because I was there at Miss Universe, so proud to represent Bali for the first time. So there you go.
Thank you. All right, Guzman. So we got another question. Yeah.
Hi Laksmi, salam kenal. My name is Tungga, Tungga Dewi, you can call me Tungga. So first of all, I'm very, very proud of you winning the Miss Indonesia. I'm originally from West Java, but I've been living in Ubud for the past 8 years. So when I received that notification that, wow, someone from Ubud, I know I follow like the Ubud Writers and Reader Festival, Ubud Food Festival. So I'm very, very proud, as you know, when you won the competition, and I think it's really the perfect fit, like image for Indonesian as an also like a literary ambassadors. So not only beauty, but also the brain and also the behavior. So I just want to say that I'm very proud and congratulations once again. So my question would be, so I moved to Ubud 2017 to join a nonprofit called Copernic, where we run a lot of experimentation in the last mile area of Indonesia. And for the past 4 years when I worked there, whenever I met a girl like you, when you like travel across Indonesia, it's always like a big barrier for them to dream high, to like, you know, I want to be a president, or I want to be a manager, or I want to be a CEO or something like that. And for the past 7 years of learning this, then I came into understanding of there is a dream gap of girl starting when they just got their first period. So when they just got their first period and puberty, they try to shrink themselves to like, oh yeah, my place in the kitchen, and or like, oh, I can't be too smart, otherwise men will or boys will be afraid of me, or I can't do this and that. So long story short, after working for that, I told like my boss, I want to run a social enterprise dedicating to eliminate the dream gap by ending poverty and educating the women and girls the importance of your health and your education by providing period products and period education to schools and women's community. So my question would be, so Indonesia would celebrate 100 years in 2045, and there are still a lot of homeworks that we need to do. One of that is, as you said, like girls' education and women's participation in the economy and the politics and the society in general. So my question would be how we escalate the gender equality in Indonesia. Like, how do you see your role is going to be? And also, I really admire you and really want to collaborate to end, period poverty and prioritize girls' education for perfect fit with reusable pads and period education. Would like also to start seeking collaboration later to go to the Banjar in Ubud and we educate the girls together to end period poverty and make Bali escalating the women's participations in the future, so we can reach the Indonesia Emas, Gold Indonesia in 2045. Thank you.
What a beautiful comment and question. Really good. I was like, can we swap? Can we swap places? Honestly.
She's gonna host next week.
She's really good.
You can have a holiday.
She's really good. Bhavna, we work
I can
together.
be your co-host next time. No, just kidding.
I love that. I'm going to be quiet now.
Well, I love how people always ask me for solutions, because obviously we're still like fighting for gender equality until now. But I've spoken a lot about gender equality and what we can do about it. For me, it's not just about educating the women, which is a big part of your work. It's also about educating the men, because I feel like I've been put down so much because I was not validated, I was not listened to because most of the leaders are men. So it's not because I was scared to speak up or I felt shy or I felt like it wasn't my place. I never felt that way ever in my life. I always have something to say, especially if it's regarding, changes and how to improve the well-being of myself and things around me. It's just like I'm tired of being put down so much whenever I speak, that stare when they look at you that you don't matter, like you shouldn't say anything. I think that's a big part of maybe our culture that we need to reevaluate and re-educate people about. So again, for me, it comes down to education. And then the second thing is that there's a lot of will politically and from corporations or businesses for gender equality, but I think we need to focus also on gender equity. So, places are already open for women, doors are already open, but how can we actually boost the willingness to participate, or not the willingness, the availability for women, because maybe we have extra things to provide for. Maybe we need more time when we give birth, or when we have to, I don't know, sometimes when we're sick, or when we have our periods, those kind of things needs to be accommodated for women. So yeah, I think those two simple things might be a good start.
Bonnick, brilliant company, what they're doing. Arvin, I'm in touch with, but you're a co-host, right? That's sorted. Going back to what you've just said, there's two things that come up. One is the finance minister, Mulyani. She is brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? She is brilliant. I remember watching, this was shortly after COVID, and she was in the US. I don't remember the place, but she was with the finance ministers of like the G10 or the G5, like the strongest 5 to 10 economies in the world, US and a few others, right? And I remember, because at that time Indonesia had the fastest kind of bounce back of any economy, right? In the world, pretty much after COVID, 5.2, 5.3%, whatever it was, this growth. But I remember watching it and not necessarily realizing who she was actually, or even realizing that she was Indonesian at first. But I don't know why I was watching it, but I was watching it, but I was so impressed with how she answered the questions. So she was precise, passionate, but not rude. She was firm but not egotistical. And she was empowered but not out of control. And then I found out her name was Muliani, and I was goosebumps. I was like, my God, this woman is amazing, you know. And these are some of the people. I've mentioned some of them: Muliani, Matilda, Malati, you. There's so many others that I've interviewed or had the pleasure, the opportunity to interview over the years. My youngest daughter is born on Kartini Day. Which is coming pretty soon, right? So, my God, Marina, we've got their birthdays coming up, right? But as I said to you, I'll share it with you. When she was 5, right? And every parent out here is going to relate to this and give me the same look. And those of you who are not parents, don't let it scare you to not be a parent in future, right? So, 5 years of age. It was me and Marina, my beloved, her mum. We're having this conversation. This 5-year-old suddenly turns to us and says, listen, she addressed me, but I think it was to both of us. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. She said, okay, you can't tell me how to feel. It's my body, not yours. I know what I'm feeling. Words like that. Now, what can you say to that? As you so rightly said, nothing.
I said you're right. I said for you to tell her you're right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And then nothing else.
Yeah, nothing else. So Marina and I looked at each other. I won't use the words that I used, but we looked at each other and said, we're in trouble. We're in trouble, but not in a negative way. Not in a negative way, honestly, but in a very positive way. But that's the one who's born on Kartini Day. She is a force of nature. The older one is a little bit more empathic, right? And the young one is like sharp, smart, like shoot. But anyway, so I'm outnumbered in my house. There's 3 women to 1. The dog is the only other male who doesn't see it my way anytime. He knows to support the women. So anyway, so my life has been that way since I can remember. Women have always been, like the guide for me. Right? Interestingly enough, but we digress. So, are there any other questions? Yeah. So we over here first. Yeah, because you're closer to the mic. Yeah. So we'll have a question. Oh, it's cracking me up. They're probably watching, saying, "Daddy's talking about us."
My parents always talk about me too, so it's fine. We secretly love it.
Hi, Laksmi. We see again. It's very inspiring to have you, and I follow your Instagram and your activity, and I'm very admire about your yayasan, this literacy. I think that's the first, right? Kind of yayasan.
No, I actually, personally, I don't have a yayasan because, again, charity work is a whole nother story. You have to be fully committed, and especially when you do have a yayasan, I would take it very seriously because it's a huge responsibility to just even start a yayasan, in my opinion. You have to really practice what you preach and really give back accordingly.
Okay, this about this literacy.
But maybe movement campaign, Laksmi for literacy.
Yeah. I saw it like you have a book and you challenge the people to read the book or something like that. I saw it on Instagram, right?
Yes.
And my question actually, once I involved in a library project with Rotary, we donate books to some SD in around Bali. But there are a lot of challenges because we don't have this, what is it called? Habit of reading. Because it's from our parents to generation. We don't have this habit, and I'm wondering. I mean, your this literacy is very interesting, especially for education. I think that's the core also. That how do you think you can have a program or solution? Maybe you can give to the government, especially to the education ministry, to have this in the curriculum. I mean, like, if school abroad, maybe the teacher have tasks that you have to read one book and you give the summary after that. But we don't have in a local school. My kids go to local school, non-government local school, and I think they don't have, and especially now the children are bombarded with smartphone, you know. They would be more prefer to see smartphone than books. So my question is, how do you think the future will be? Maybe this is one of the reasons you can go to politics as a politician to change.
Yeah, so I also
Thank you.
Thank you for the
you.
question,
Yeah.
and following my Instagram and what I do. That's also something that have always made me wonder, because I also went to the local school SD Negeri, you know, until SMP. So SMP, which is junior high, I went to National Plus School in Denpasar, and that's my first time having an English literature class. So I also wonder, why don't we have an Indonesian literature in SD, you know, in the local school? I don't know why until now. I don't think they have it. So I've actually spoken about this a couple of times, and if I see someone who's maybe Mbak Franca, you know, I would mention it to her or anyone. I think I also mentioned it in Pak Gita Wiryawan's podcast, so I would just talk about this. And then the other thing that I do is that instead of just giving people aid or support or donations, I wanted to also solve this problem on how can we actually make children or Indonesians more interested in reading. And I found two ways. One of it was by doing storytelling events with communities. Whenever I have time or whenever I would travel around Indonesia, I set up a day to meet with kids and do a simple storytelling session with them in a very interactive way, so that they would be interested in maybe picking up a book next time. There's also a non-profit called Yayasan Literasi Anak Indonesia. They actually train the teachers to do interactive reading for the children, where in the schools where they actually set up libraries. So they not only donate books, renovate the libraries, but they also train the teachers on how to properly read books to the children to make them engaged and curious about reading the books. The other thing is my social media campaign, where I ask people to just tag me and use the hashtag Laksmi for Literacy whenever they would post a story about a book that they're reading. And I've gotten messages from people who hasn't picked up a book in years saying that, oh my God, I'm inspired to read again by this simple social media campaign. And now I'm trying to kind of see on how I can take this further, or how I can just continue to inspire people to read. I'm just, I still want to keep going with this whole campaign and advocacy of mine, because the impact is really profound for a person. I know that, I understand that, I felt it myself. It really has transformed my life. As I was telling you, my mom used to read books to me when I was a kid, and when I started reading books, I
do believe
grew.
you won the Puteri Indonesia because all the knowledge you have from the reading. That's one of the key. I do believe that. Seriously.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious.
I'm just happy to inspire like one person to actually start reading. So one of my best friends from Puteri Indonesia, who was actually my roommate, she became like a sister to me. Since last year, she has never read a book before in her life. And now she is reading like 10 books. I don't know 10 books a month, but she's read in total 10 books in the past couple of months.
I love that. Far out.
So for me, that's already like,
It's a win.
it made me happy, it made me feel like I've done something good for someone else.
Thank you. Great question.
Thank you.
So we'll move the microphone. If we go behind you, and we'll move over to Sasha. So now one of the things which, just while we're getting to Sasha, that I think is really important to talk about, but before I get there, so we talked about education and literacy being really important, right? I'm laughing because which festival did your mum create?
Good writers.
Writers Festival. So again, I'm not saying like that your trajectory is clearly obvious, but anyway, I'll let you guys figure that one out. You know what I'm saying. The second thing I want to talk about, before we get to Sasha's question, is just prior to this, we spoke about, now you brought it up, smartphones, right? So we spoke about this, I want it now, instant gratification kind of way of seeing the world, right? And it's not just Indonesia, it's all over the world, right? And smartphones, you know, I mean, our kids are growing up with smartphones too, and sometimes, you know, we look at, Marina and I look at each other and go like, did we do the right thing, right? And we limit the time, we try to be responsible with it, but we don't know what the impact will be until later. But just addressing that thing about, you know, we're talking about the under 30s, we're talking about Indonesia as a whole, the future of Indonesia, we're talking about the fourth most populous nation on earth, right? One of the youngest adopters of technology, largest adopters of technology in the world. So firstly, like, how would you view this kind of instant gratification way of seeing the world, and what would you do? And then what kind of future would you like to see? Yeah, no solutions, by the way, just your opinion.
How would I view the instant gratification?
Yeah. Is it something that you see as being a challenge? Is it something that you see as being real? If so, how? And what do you see as a way, you know, to kind of have a result to the positive with it? Because smartphones are not bad either. It's how you use them. But I don't want to guide you too much in your response.
I mean, I think we're all still learning about this and figuring it out ourselves too, because it happens to me too, you know. Sometimes instead of like dealing with a conflict, or whenever I have a hard conversation with someone, I immediately pick up my phone just to like distract myself. I don't think anything instant is good for you, especially if it becomes an addiction. You know, being addicted to gratification is not something you really want, because that's not the reality of life. You know, you have to deal with challenges from different emotions, from anger, from sadness. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have so much anxiety these days and mental health problems. But but social media is such an interesting thing we have, because it's a double-edged sword, you know. But it's also something that helps so many Indonesians have the opportunities that they wouldn't have had if it wasn't for social media. So it's a very interesting topic for me. But I think, at the end of the day, it's all about understanding this, about being literate, about also having digital literacy, understanding how you can use your time on social media and how you can use your time in real life as well.
Thank you. Sasha.
Hi, Laksmi. Hi, Robert.
All right, now, because you're probably going to maybe be the last question, you get the chance to say what Trilogy does. Woohoo! Yay.
So it's a bit related to my question. Since I had a few questions for Laksmi Puteri Indonesia, but since I'm talking to Bali's first future woman governor, I'd like
round of applause. You heard it here first.
I'd rather infuse my question with a suggestion. You guys said that Indonesia is a bit unseen in the international scene. And I would like to talk about the unseen within Indonesia, which is farmers. So as being next Bali governor, what about making, and starting with Bali organic with regenerative practices, but bringing the whole, making Bali and Indonesia the organic farm of the world, which is about health, which is emphasizing education within farming. It's also a better value for farmers, which I believe are the poorest of Indonesia. And yep.
First of all, let's not spread rumors. Let's not spread rumors about me running for anything. But the answer is yes, of course. You know, before we used the term organic, we were already organic. So why not go back to what was better for us, for our health, for our bodies, for the planet? But another thing is, I learned from a book, actually, one of my favorite books called Sapiens. You know, it's one of my favorite books. humans don't tend to go back in progress. So it's up to us to really find a way to progress with being organic in the right way. I'm sure you have so much knowledge, more than me, about, organic farming and living. So I guess I can only invite young people to really think about this, because I also believe in eating organic, living organically as well. But I've also had very interesting conversations with people who are working in this field of agriculture and actually agricultural preservation. And one friend of mine said that he doesn't believe in organic simply because it can't feed enough people. So there's also a huge dilemma and conversation that you could have about our problem today. But Bali being a center of organic, I agree, because I feel like we're pioneers in so many movements and finding solutions. And as long as it's positive and as long as you believe that we can do it, I totally 100% agree, because we want to be seen, we want to be continued to be seen as the pioneer of creating change instead of all the problems happening in Bali. How can we continue to be great, to be to not like having the problems, but to be the solution? Yeah. So yes, the answer is just yes. Okay, let's go.
It's a great answer. So Sasha, so you got 30 seconds, man. Let's see, let's hear it. Trilogy, come on, tell us, what is it? I think it's very important what you're doing. So Guzman, camera back on our man over there.
No. Trilogy, it's a regenerative moringa farm based in Data, which is right between the Volcano crater, Moagong, and Ahmed. We grow everything regeneratively so that it's good for the people, good for the soil, and therefore good for the future, I believe. Impacts are reducing water erosion, soil erosion. Don't know where to start. Do you guys know about moringa? Yeah?
Yes, we know about moringa. Yes.
Moringa, it's amazing because it's the most nutritional plant that there is, but it's also a plant that can regenerate the soil. Nitrogen is one of the most important aspect of soil's health. So by planting moringa, by doing moringa plantation, you regenerate the soil, and then with the harvest that nature gives us, you regenerate people's health. So it benefits a whole, and yep, that's what we strive to do.
You did good. You did good. So everybody, Trilogy, it's in Tree, Logy, Logy. Check them out. They're doing it's a world-class series of products using moringa. All right, check them out. They're amazing. So look, we're going to begin to close this up, but the last question I want to ask you and give you time to think about the answer, then I do a quick outtake, is, in the context of, the future of Indonesia, and maybe what you can do is bring in outside of Bali to this question as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, that you'd like to add? It might be highlighting something in another part of Indonesia that maybe particularly impressed you, that gives you hope for the future. It might be something like that as well. But we'll give you, in about 2 minutes, we'll give you some time to think of what that is and to kind of close us out with what you'd like to say, all right? Now, so that 2 minutes, which I'll fill now, firstly, I just want to thank everybody here for coming. It's really cool that we have people that come in person so we can be guided and led by you, right? So it's not just 2 people or 5 people having a unique conversation. It's being impacted by your energy and your force of being here, which is really important. So for those of you watching at home, thank you for watching at home. If you live in Bali, come in person. Right? It's not only to meet incredible people like this, which is very important, but it's who an incredible person like this also attracts as the audience. So again, the person that often can contribute to the life that you have is sitting right next to you. But most of the time we don't know it because we don't speak. So that's the point about coming in person, because you get a chance to network and talk between yourselves, right? And what we'll do pretty soon is that we'll do like a 6 o'clock show up, and then people can have a quick intro session so you know who you're going to talk to afterwards, right? So we'll do that pretty soon. Outside of that, I just want to thank Tropical Nomad, Guzman, we got IU, we got Hadis around here somewhere. Great to see you. We'll do photos in a minute. So just thank you. This is episode number 417. And again, it's about consistency and showing up, which is what we do. As I mentioned, next week, we've spoken about it quite a bit, the charity or the Yayasan. It's really important, right, for not just here in the world, but everywhere in the world, but here in Indonesia, even more so, because this is where we live. So those 3 experts next week, from Janur Yasa, who won CNN Heroes for Plastic Exchange, Margaret Barry, Bali Children's Foundation, incredibly well respected, appreciated and loved, and of course Bim Bim, who is from Bali Bersama Bisa, which is filling and addressing this gap of mental health, which is super important everywhere in the world, not only here, especially after COVID. Right? So that's going to be next week. So come in person, check them out. Beautiful humans. If you can't make it, watch it here online. Now, what I want to say to you, Laksmi, is that, you know, like 3 years, whatever it is in coming, and I'm super impressed with you, right? I'll just call it as I see it. I think you harness, I know that you harness so much possibility, opportunity, and you have the discipline, the resilience, and the power and the platform to make it happen. And if you asked me earlier on, can I support you? You already have my support. So however I can support and contribute and assist you, just only need to ask, right? And I'm sure there's many other people, not only the ones just sitting here who are nodding their head going, I'll help you too. Not only just them, but those who are looking from online. Because remember, we're in a place where the DNA is united in diversity. So it's part of us by being here alone. It's something that is always ground up. It's always coming through, right? So, and again, Gotong Royong, like we have so many, right? So thank you so much for saying yes. Really appreciate you. And over to you to see us out with whatever it is you want to contribute and add.
Okay, thank you so much for having me here today. It's been a pleasure, and sharing my story with everyone. And every time I have these kind of talk shows or discussions, actually I learn a lot as well from everyone here, but also sometimes from myself, because when you say it out loud, you also learn the things that you already know to yourself. But yeah, it's been a pleasure being here. And am I answering your question?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so I think that with Jokowi's presidency, and even when it's coming towards the end of it, we're realizing the potential of the sleeping giant, which is Indonesia. And I think a lot of young people are aware of that too. And there's so many young Indonesians that have so much potential, skills, knowledge, brain, intelligence, that we kind of need to just dig deep and really give the platform for them to showcase this potential. And I think with what you were just saying just now about giving support to me, that means a lot, because being here motivated me to keep making a change, or do something for not just myself but other people too. And I think if we're able to keep doing this in the future, giving the motivation, support to all the young people in Indonesia, and opening doors for them, and just kind of doing what Jokowi did to our country in a big way, I think that's the future that I'm looking forward to have.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Round of applause, please. Laksmi DeNeefe Suardana. See you next week.
Thank you.